Sorry, you guys. She had to cancel the show. She's got mom stuff to do, and not feeling that well tonight. But we will do the show at some point. So again, I don't like to make plans and then let people down or whatever. But interestingly enough, I thought Agent 19 show was quite interesting. Kind of crazy coincidence because when we're talking about MUFON, I had a similar experience with them too. I didn't go out on site and investigate, but I did some legwork voluntarily. I had been a member of MUFON, pre-Bigelow MUFON. Even then, things were kind of a little bit hokey with some people. I mean, I took some people take it really serious, and I took it a serious topic because personally, I've had experiences, and I'll say that for the show, but I don't claim to be to know exactly what they were and the craft, what they were, ours or theirs, or. But I've had UFO sightings and experiences of the third kind since I was a kid. So on and off through my life. I used to have a YouTube channel years ago called The Truth Project 2012. Well, that got flagged into oblivion, like many of my channels. It was somewhat successful. I had somewhat of a following in the infancy of YouTube, and it was pre-2012. I call it The Truth Project 2012 for the reason alone that, with all the doom porn going around, and I was trying to get to some of the answers surrounding the Mayan prophecies, and which I really didn't believe in, but I entertained the thought. That being said, I had a few successful YouTube channels, and they're no longer around. I did move on to other things and topics, but it's a subject I was always fascinated with and intrigued by, having my own experiences. That being said, I'm somewhat quite privy to many UFO cases and some of the hucksters and some of the actual good sources to be taken seriously, like Dr. John Mack. No longer with us, but his body of work from Harvard to Jacques Vallée. I think Jacques Vallée has the closest out of many researchers. He's probably the best. But yeah, in my experiences, with some of these people, there's a lot of hucksters like Jim Greer. That guy, no. And coincidentally, he went to Maharishi University about 20 miles away. He was what they call a floater. So he was kind of into that New Age guru stuff, back in the 70s, before he was a ER doctor. That guy's a huckster, in my opinion. So to get it first, he knew how to really capture intrigue people. I do appreciate some of the work he did in his early years with the Disclosure Project, but bringing people forward. But he took a weird turn. Who else? A lot of hoaxers, but it is. I mean, if this was a subject that was just so cut and dry, and you could just say, well, it's all U.S. military hardware to night terrors, sleep paralysis. I'll just say that I've had my own sleep paralysis, and it's much different than that. This was like I will say it does tie into the metaphysical level of things. It does defy a lot of what we understand as science today, but that's today's science is tomorrow's science fiction, or today's science fiction is tomorrow's sciences. I should say. I think the 62 children in Zimbabwe should be brought up because that is a very interesting and compelling case. And to this day, they're grown up, and they all corroborate the same story to this day. Yeah, so wouldn't say the alien abduction subjects dead in the water. But I still believe Travis Walton. I believe that. I think maybe some of the stuff is coincidental. Probably, it doesn't mean that he had a narrative to profit from it. And I kind of look at it from a different view. I wouldn't say it's debunked at all. Not that I have a narrative of my own or my own beliefs. I really don't have a belief system when it comes to this stuff. I'm a critical thinker. I'm very objective. I have been a skeptic. You have to approach this subject with great skepticism, or you're gonna get hoodwinked, and you're gonna get sucked in this whole new age guru cultish mindset that we see today with like the light workers and kooks like that. And I'm sorry, but I just don't really take those types seriously. But I will. Let's see. Let's talk about. Let's see here. Okay, so this is my last sighting. This is back in February 2009. It occurred on the 3rd. I reported it on the 9th. Let's have a look. Happened on February 2nd, 2009, 9 o'clock p.m. roughly. Reported on the 2000. Yeah, reported on the 9th. I did report it to MUFON too, and from my experiences, they weren't very good investigators, and I talked to them on the phone. So pre-Bigelow, MUFON. As some of you might know, Bigelow's a shill. I don't trust that guy at all. And things got really weird with MUFON after that, and that's when I bowed out. But my friends had noticed this object and brought it to my attention, and he knew I was a trained observer and well versed in this topic. And so let's continue. Characteristics. The object left a trail. The object changed color. The object landed. Bright white sphere pulsing to an amber color. Ottumwa, Iowa. 9 o'clock p.m. to 3:09. My friend was on his way, driving to pick me up, and he notices a bright light hovering above the high school football field, Schaefer Field to be exact. He picks me up and tells me to check out something, and so we go over the hill on Iowa Avenue. He says, "Look." I see it right over what I can say is either the field itself, Schaefer Field, which is our football practice field, or over the center of town. And then I determined that it was over the field, around 1,000 feet. It's a bright white light, and it's just sitting there stationary. I think this is a helicopter coming down on it first. So I roll down the window, no sound, no sign of red or blue lights, nav lights, which the FAA requires all aircraft to have, which did not have. So I observed, made some more. I looked around. I could see Venus. I could see where Mars was at and Jupiter. And this was about as bright as the moon, not as big as the moon, probably maybe a quarter size of a full moon, as I remember. So we turn the corner, and shortly after, this thing begins to pulse and turns from white to an amber color with a white streak to the left and is gone. So this thing darted off towards the mall southwest. Yeah. It's just zipped off, and so we're looking at the same area, and then we look to see, and it is way off to the south, west of town, but dimmer as it's, you know, on this path. It is in the direction of the mall, and now we begin to trip out. You know, we're kind of like, what? Okay, this is not an airplane or a helicopter at this point. Now this is where we're not sure if it's in the same thing or another craft. So we started following this, and so he heads towards this direction, and this thing moves to the northwest, and then hovers from what I can tell as the tree line, and descends in a field area where mostly cornfield should be. Now this thing had made direct turns. Okay, if you see a plane will turn slowly, this thing moved like okay, and this was going at G's faster than I've seen fighter craft or what have you. And I'm pretty I grew up next to airports. I understand avionics enough to tell you that it wasn't anything conventional. I understand. So it heads towards this direction and moves to the northwest and hovers from what I can tell is a tree line and descends in a fielded area where mostly cornfield should be, because you can't see there's trees, and you can see it going down some ways off from the road. So this descended and went down, and yeah, I had a crappy Kodak digital camera at the time, and so he had a what was a Motorola Razor. Yeah, he had that Motorola. If you understand FLIR cameras, and even today with your comment with, we've had great leaps in cameras in our cell phones, and still, if like a lot of people will tell you, if you film a light in the sky, it's not going to show up unless you got a really good camera. Even our phones aren't made to capture that kind of thing, so it didn't show up in the video, unfortunately. I have portions of his footage on my digital camera on him and his cell phone during half the chase. This did not turn out on either one. Unfortunately, I did not record the footage from where we first saw this thing at its brightest. Say it was intense as the moon, but smaller. Hard to say what size it was. It clearly was not a conventional aircraft, planet, and performed excessive speeds, maneuvers too. It was not a chopper, a plane, or Venus. This was a moving object that traveled at 4 directions, changed color, and defied what we know. My friend wanted to chase it to the countryside, and I was against it, so we abandoned the chase. Yeah. So again, bad idea. Wouldn't advise it. Wouldn't want to get my friend involved in that. I'll talk more about my sightings and experiences of the third kind on the show when we do get around to it. So that's the best I could do right now. Again, I'm not subscribed to exactly. I'm not going to say I know what these things, beings, craft, where they come from. I'll just say that I've had sleep paralysis, I've had night terrors, all those things, PTSD. Totally not anything like what I experienced. I can entertain the thought of it being that, but I know better. Not that I would actually love to believe that's the case, that it was sleep paralysis. Yeah, I would like that. So that's all I have for you. I've been reluctant to discuss this stuff. I sometimes I'd hint around, even in relationship. If I knew someone really close, I would hint around at this stuff and see how open they were to it. Because I had a channel years ago, and I had my face blurred out. This was I discussed this stuff, and I had quite a following, but I lost that channel eventually. It's no longer, and the footage wasn't no good either. I did submit it to move on, but and new work. Um, Again, this is why a lot of people are skeptical of UFOs because, well, why don't we see UFOs on my digital camera or my phone? Well, sometimes, and then when we do see really good footage, then people say, well, it's CGI, which is not always the case. Um, if you got a good FLIR camera and you are trained to use it, I implore you to. But good luck capturing a UFO up close on camera. Um, I think maybe I'll talk a little bit more about it if I get a chance on Agent's show. If they go on the subject again, I think. Um, but that's all I got for you right now. So that is all.